The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was reviewing business proposals when my phone lit up with my mother's name. I answered cheerfully, only to have her words slice through me like ice. "Chase, your father and I think it would be better if you didn't come to Amanda's wedding. You would ruin the atmosphere with your differences." My heart stopped. My own sister's wedding, and I wasn't welcome. I stayed silent, swallowing the hurt, as Mom continued explaining how Patrick's family had expectations. After hanging up, I sat motionless, the rejection burning inside me. I had no idea then that in just 2 months, my own wedding video would be trending worldwide, and that the guest list would literally make my mother faint. Growing up in Portland with my parents, Thomas and Margaret Spencer, and my younger sister Amanda, was like living in 2 different worlds. From the beginning, it was clear who the star of the family was. Amanda was the golden child, excelling in everything she touched. School came naturally to her, and she collected awards and achievements like some kids collected baseball cards. I was different, creative, restless, and entrepreneurial from a young age. While Amanda studied diligently for straight A's, I was building websites for local businesses and launching small ventures from our garage. My parents never quite understood my path. "When are you going to do something serious with your life, Chase?" came my father's favorite question during Sunday dinners. The divide grew wider when Amanda graduated high school as valedictorian and headed to an Ivy League school for pre-law. My parents beamed with pride, telling everyone they met about their brilliant daughter. Meanwhile, I chose to skip college altogether, investing my savings in a digital marketing startup I'd been building. The disappointment on my parents' faces was unmistakable. "You're throwing away your future," Dad had said, shaking his head. No degree, no security. But I was determined to prove them wrong. Through 80-hour work weeks and countless setbacks, I built my company into something substantial. By 26, I was turning a healthy profit and employing 15 people. Not that my family seemed to notice. Amanda's law school graduation and subsequent job at a prestigious firm overshadowed everything else. Then I met Jenna at a business conference in Seattle. She was giving a presentation on digital marketing strategies, and I was immediately struck by her intelligence and passion. With wavy brown hair and bright green eyes that lit up when she talked about her work, Jenna captivated me from the first moment. We spent the entire evening in the hotel bar, talking about business ideas and dreams until the staff started cleaning up around us. Jenna was different from anyone I'd ever met. She understood my drive, my vision, and never once asked why I hadn't gotten a real education. Instead, she saw the value in my path and pushed me to think even bigger. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. After 3 years of building our lives together, I proposed on a weekend trip to the Oregon coast. The joy on her face when she said yes is something I'll never forget. Around the same time, Amanda announced her engagement to Patrick, a partner at her law firm. He came from a wealthy Boston family with old money and older expectations. When we met him at a family dinner, he barely acknowledged my work, dismissing it as one of those internet things before turning the conversation back to his recent court victory. Still, I was genuinely happy for my sister. Despite our differences, I loved Amanda and wanted her to be happy. The initial excitement of having our weddings in the same year created a brief sense of connection between us. We even joked about racing to the altar, a rare moment of sibling camaraderie that I treasured. Then came the call that changed everything. I was in my office when my phone rang. Seeing my mother's name, I answered with a smile, expecting wedding talk. Instead, her voice was tight, uncomfortable. "Chase, your father and I have been talking with Amanda and Patrick about the wedding arrangements," she began cautiously. "Do they need help with anything?" I offered, always eager to find ways to connect with my family. "No, that's not it." She paused, and I could hear her take a deep breath. "Chase, we think it would be better if you didn't attend the wedding." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? Mom, what are you talking about? Patrick's family is very traditional. They're expecting a certain kind of event. Your lifestyle, the way you dress, the things you talk about, they're just so different. Amanda is concerned you wouldn't fit in with the atmosphere they're trying to create." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own sister didn't want me at her wedding because I might embarrass her in front of her fancy in-laws? "Have you talked to Amanda about this?" I asked, my voice barely steady. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own sister didn't want me at her wedding because I might embarrass her in front of her fancy in-laws? The casual button-down shirts and jeans I wore to my office suddenly felt like a cardinal sin. I wanted to argue, to fight for my place at my sister's wedding, but something stopped me. A lifetime of being the family disappointment had conditioned me to accept their judgment, to believe that perhaps they were right about me. "I understand," I said finally, though I didn't. "Not really." "I knew you would," Mom replied, relief evident in her voice. "You can always see the wedding photos afterward." After hanging up, I sat at my desk for hours, unable to move or think clearly. The exclusion felt like confirmation of everything I'd always feared. I wasn't good enough for my family, not even worth accommodating for a few hours on one of the most important days of my sister's life. That night, I told Jenna what happened. Her eyes flashed with anger as I recounted the conversation. "That's absolutely outrageous," she said, pacing our living room. "How dare they exclude you like that? You're her brother." I just shrugged, trying to appear less hurt than I was. "It's her day. She should have it exactly how she wants it." Jenna stopped pacing and knelt in front of me. "Chase, this isn't about one day. This is about them continuing to make you feel less than, and it's not right." Deep down, I knew she was right. But years of conditioning had taught me to accept my role as the family disappointment. So, instead of fighting, instead of demanding the respect I deserved, I simply nodded and promised Jenna we would focus on our own wedding instead. What I didn't know then was that this painful exclusion would set in motion a series of events that would change everything, not just for me, but for my entire family. The weeks following my mother's call were some of the darkest I'd experienced. Despite my outward acceptance, the exclusion from Amanda's wedding cut deeper than I wanted to admit. I found myself questioning everything about myself, wondering what was so fundamentally wrong with me that my own family would rather not have me present on such an important occasion. Sleep became elusive. I'd lie awake at night, replaying years of small rejections and sideways glances, connecting them like dots that formed a clear picture. I was the family embarrassment. During the day, I went through the motions at work, but my usual enthusiasm had vanished. My employees noticed the change but respectfully kept their distance, unsure how to approach their usually energetic boss who now moved like a ghost through the office. Jenna was my lifeline during this time. She never pushed me to get over it or move on. Instead, she sat with me in my pain, validating my feelings while gently reminding me of my worth. "Your family's inability to appreciate you doesn't diminish your value," she would tell me, her hands cradling my face. "It only reflects their limitations, not yours." I kept the wedding exclusion to myself, telling friends and colleagues I couldn't attend because of an important business commitment. The thought of explaining the truth was too humiliating. Meanwhile, Amanda never reached out personally about the decision. No call, no text, not even an email to soften the blow. Her silence spoke volumes about where I stood in her life. One evening, as I sat listlessly scrolling through my phone, Jenna sat beside me with a determined look on her face. "I think we need to refocus," she said firmly. "Let's pour all our energy into creating the most meaningful wedding possible for us." I looked up at her, skeptical. "What's the point? It's just going to be a small gathering anyway." Jenna's eyes sparkled with something I couldn't quite identify. "Maybe, maybe not. But either way, it's going to be authentic to us and who we are." She pulled out her laptop and opened a document titled Wedding Vision. As she began sharing ideas, her enthusiasm slowly rekindled something in me. This was our day, a celebration of the life we'd built together despite obstacles. Maybe it wouldn't have the prestige of Amanda's country club ceremony, but it would be real. We decided on a converted industrial space in downtown Portland that had been transformed into an elegant venue while maintaining its historic character. The exposed brick walls and wooden beams spoke to our appreciation for authenticity over pretension. We would keep the guest list small, focusing on quality over quantity, inviting only people who had genuinely supported our journey. As we delved deeper into planning, something unexpected happened. Jenna revealed that, through her work in digital marketing, she had connections to several influential people in various industries. "Remember that campaign I ran for Tech Future last year?" she asked one night over dinner. I nodded, recalling the innovative digital strategy she'd developed for the tech conference. "Well, Jordan Wallace was so impressed with it that we've kept in touch. He mentioned he'd love to attend our wedding if we were open to it. I nearly choked on my water. Jordan Wallace was the founder of one of the most successful tech companies in the country, a billionaire innovator who rarely made public appearances. "You're joking," I said, certain she was trying to cheer me up. Jenna shook her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "Not joking. And he's not the only one who might be interested in coming." This revelation shifted something in me. Not because I wanted to use these connections to prove something to my family, but because it reminded me that I had built meaningful relationships in my own right. People of substance and accomplishment saw value in me, even if my family couldn't. Around this time, my best friend Travis learned the truth about my exclusion from Amanda's wedding. I hadn't planned to tell him, but after one too many beers during a night out, the story spilled from me like water through a broken dam. Travis listened in shocked silence, his expression darkening with each detail. When I finished, he simply said, "That's messed up, man. Really messed up." Around this time, my best friend Travis learned the truth about my exclusion from Amanda's wedding. I hadn't planned to tell him, but after one too many beers during a night out, the story spilled from me like water through a broken dam. Meanwhile, the wedding planning became my emotional salvation. Each decision, from the locally sourced menu to the playlist filled with songs that had marked important moments in our relationship, pulled me further from the darkness that had enveloped me after my mother's call. Jenna and I created a wedding that reflected our values: community over exclusivity, substance over appearance, and joy over pretension. We decided to incorporate elements that celebrated the people who had supported our journey, including a wall where guests could leave messages about moments of connection they'd shared with us. Meanwhile, the wedding planning became my emotional salvation. Each decision, from the locally sourced menu to the playlist filled with songs that had marked important moments in our relationship, pulled me further from the darkness that had enveloped me after my mother's call. "Are you still hurt about Amanda's wedding?" she asked gently. I paused, considering the question. "Yes," I admitted. "But I'm also starting to see that maybe it's a gift in disguise. It's forcing me to acknowledge what I've always known but tried to ignore. My family doesn't value who I actually am, just who they wish I would be." Jenna squeezed my hand. Their loss, truly. As our wedding date approached, I found myself thinking less about what I was missing, and more about what I was gaining. A partnership with someone who embraced all of me, and a celebration that would reflect our authentic journey. Little did I know that our modest wedding was about to become something far more significant than either of us could have imagined, catalyzed by the very rejection that had once threatened to break me. The day of Amanda's wedding arrived with picture-perfect weather. I spent the morning trying not to think about the ceremony happening across town, focusing instead on a client project that needed my attention. Despite my best efforts, I found myself checking social media throughout the day. Around 3 in the afternoon, the first photos appeared on Instagram. My cousin Tyler had posted a series of shots from the church. Amanda looking radiant in her designer gown, my parents beaming with pride as they walked her down the aisle, the elaborate floral arrangements that must have cost a small fortune. My throat tightened as I swiped through the images. In every family photo, the space where I should have stood was seamlessly filled, as if I had never existed. No one viewing these perfect portraits would ever know Amanda had a brother who hadn't been welcome at her celebration. I put my phone down, determined not to torture myself further, when a text from Jenna lit up my screen. "Need you to come home early today. Important wedding stuff to discuss." Grateful for the distraction, I closed my laptop and headed home to our apartment. When I arrived, Jenna was sitting at our kitchen table with an expression I couldn't quite read, somewhere between excitement and apprehension. "What's going on?" I asked, setting down my bag. "We need to talk about our guest list," she said, gesturing for me to sit. "Remember how I mentioned some of my connections might be interested in attending?" I nodded, settling into the chair across from her. "Well, I've been getting some unexpected RSVPs." She slid her tablet toward me. "Jordan Wallace confirmed this morning. He's actually flying in specifically for our wedding." I stared at the screen, reading the enthusiastic response from the tech mogul, who had added a personal note about how much he respected what we were building. "There's more," Jenna continued, scrolling through her emails. "Remember that charity concert you helped organize for hurricane relief last year?" "Sure," I said, recalling the small event I'd put together that had unexpectedly raised over $50,000. Eliza James saw it and was impressed. She's asked if she could perform a song at our reception as her gift to us. My jaw dropped. Eliza James was a 4-time Grammy winner whose music had been the soundtrack to some of the most meaningful moments in our relationship. "That's not possible," I whispered. "Very possible," Jenna countered, showing me the email. "And she's not the only one. We've had confirmations from 3 different tech entrepreneurs, that documentary filmmaker you admire, and Dr. Lisa Chen from the Climate Research Institute." My mind struggled to process what Jenna was telling me. These weren't just successful people. They were innovators and creators I had long admired from afar. And somehow, they were choosing to spend their valuable time celebrating our union. "How is this happening?" I finally managed. Jenna hesitated. "I think Travis might have had something to do with it. After you told him about being excluded from Amanda's wedding, he was pretty upset on your behalf." A knot formed in my stomach. "Did he tell people about that? Because I don't want our wedding to be some kind of pity party." "No, nothing like that," Jenna assured me quickly. "From what I gather, he simply reached out to some people, mentioned the wedding, and suggested your journey might resonate with them. These people are coming because they want to, Chase. They see something in you and what you're building." As the reality of our evolving guest list sank in, I felt conflicting emotions. There was validation, yes, but also worry about how my family might react if they learned about these connections. Would they finally see my worth? Or would they find some way to diminish this too? "Should we tell my family?" I asked, unsure what I wanted the answer to be. Jenna considered the question. "I don't think we need to make any special announcements. If they ask, we can be honest. But this is our day, Chase. It's not about them." She was right, of course. Our wedding wasn't about proving anything to my family. It was about celebrating our relationship and the community we'd built around us. Over the next few weeks, the RSVPs continued to surprise us. People from various fields, all innovators in their own right, expressed genuine interest in attending our celebration. A venture capitalist who had funded several projects similar to my early startups. A best-selling author whose book on entrepreneurial thinking had inspired me during my darkest moments. Even the mayor of Portland, who had worked with Jenna on a city marketing campaign. Word began to spread. What had started as a modest wedding was evolving into something of an event. Social media buzzed with speculation about our guest list, though we kept the confirmed attendees private out of respect for their privacy. Then, 3 weeks after Amanda's wedding, I received a brief, formal text from my sister. "Back from honeymoon. Everything went perfectly. Hope business is good." No mention of my absence. No acknowledgement of the pain it had caused. Just a perfunctory message that could have been sent to a distant acquaintance. I showed the text to Jenna, who rolled her eyes. "Wow. So generous of her to check in," she said sarcastically. I started typing several responses before deleting them all. Finally, I settled on, "Glad it was a perfect day. Our wedding plans are coming along well too." I didn't elaborate. Didn't mention the extraordinary people who had chosen to celebrate with us. Some small, petty part of me wanted to throw it in Amanda's face that I wasn't the embarrassment she thought I was. But the better part of me knew that our wedding wasn't about revenge or validation from people who couldn't see my worth. I started typing several responses before deleting them all. Finally, I settled on, "Glad it was a perfect day. Our wedding plans are coming along well too." "This is getting strange," I said, showing Jenna the post, which speculated about our star-studded guest list. Jenna squeezed my hand. "Just remember why we're doing this. It's about us and the life we've built, not the guest list." She was right, but as our wedding day approached and the interest in our celebration continued to grow, I couldn't help but wonder how my family would react when they realized what they had dismissed so casually. Not that it mattered. For perhaps the first time in my life, I was creating something that wasn't seeking their approval. And that felt more liberating than I could have imagined. With just 4 weeks until our wedding day, preparations shifted into high gear. What had started as a relatively simple affair had evolved into something more complex, requiring additional security arrangements and considerations for our high-profile guests. Thankfully, our venue coordinator, Melissa, had experience with such events and took everything in stride. We'll need to implement a no-phone policy during certain parts of the reception, she explained during one of our meetings. Some of your guests have requested privacy measures, which is standard for events like this. Events like this. The phrase struck me as surreal. Our wedding had somehow transformed from a personal celebration into an event without us fully realizing it. As we left the venue after finalizing these details, a sleek black car pulled up alongside us. The window lowered to reveal Sarah Harper, a well-known documentary filmmaker whose work focused on stories of unexpected success and social transformation. "Chase, Jenna," she called, clearly recognizing us, though we had never met. "Do you have a moment to talk?" Stunned, we approached the car. Sarah stepped out, extending her hand with a warm smile. "I've heard wonderful things about you both from mutual connections. I understand congratulations are in order." "Thank you," I managed, still surprised by her appearance. "I'll get right to the point," she continued. "I'm working on a new series about unconventional success stories, people who found their own path despite obstacles. Your journey has come up in several conversations, and I'm interested in including your wedding as part of the narrative." Jenna and I exchanged glances. "Our wedding?" I asked, confused. Sarah nodded. "From what I understand, your story represents something important about recognizing talent and value outside traditional pathways. The contrast between your sister's recent wedding, which you were excluded from, and your own celebration, which has attracted such an interesting cross-section of innovative minds, creates a compelling narrative about belonging and recognition." My stomach dropped. "How do you know about my sister's wedding?" Sarah looked momentarily uncomfortable. "It's come up in conversations. I apologize if that's sensitive information. The point is, I'm interested in authentic stories about redefining success, and yours resonates." I wanted to refuse immediately. The idea of turning our personal pain into public content felt wrong, but Jenna, always quicker to see the bigger picture, stepped in. "What exactly would this involve?" she asked, her tone professional. "Minimal disruption," Sarah assured us. "A small crew, unobtrusive filming, focused primarily on the gathering itself rather than intimate personal moments. The story would be about community and recognition, not family drama." Jenna looked at me, a question in her eyes. I knew she would support whatever decision I made. "Can I think about it?" I asked finally. Of course, Sarah handed me her card. "Just let me know soon, as we'd need to make arrangements." As we walked to our car, Jenna waited for me to speak first. "I don't know about this," I said finally. "It feels like leveraging our personal story for attention." Jenna considered this. "I understand that concern, but maybe there's another way to look at it. Your experience of being excluded, of having your value dismissed, isn't unique. Maybe sharing it could help others feel less alone." I hadn't considered this perspective. The thought that our story might resonate with others who felt unseen or undervalued by those who should love them most gave the possibility new meaning. Before I could respond, my phone rang. My parents' number flashed on the screen, surprising me. They rarely called, except for obligatory holiday check-ins. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Chase." My mother's voice sounded unusually warm. "Your father and I were just talking about your upcoming wedding. We realized we haven't been very involved in the preparations." The sudden interest after weeks of silence immediately raised my suspicions. "It's all under control," I said neutrally. "Jenna and I have handled everything." "Well, we'd love to help in any way we can," she continued, her tone becoming more hesitant. "Actually, we've been hearing some interesting things about your guest list." And there it was. The real reason for the call. "What kind of things?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Oh, just that you might have some notable attendees." She paused. "Jordan Wallace's assistant called Amanda, asking about hotel recommendations near your venue. Apparently, he mentioned he was coming to town for your wedding." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. Of course, Jordan's team would have reached out to local connections for logistics. Amanda's law firm probably handled work for his company. "Yes, Jordan is attending," I confirmed simply. My mother's intake of breath was audible. "I see. Well, that's certainly impressive. Is it true that Eliza James might perform?" "Mom, is there something specific you wanted to discuss about the wedding?" I asked, cutting through the pretense. A long pause followed. Your father and I have been thinking, and we feel terrible about the misunderstanding with Amanda's wedding. We'd like to attend your celebration, if the invitation is still open." The audacity was breathtaking. After excluding me from my own sister's wedding without a second thought, they now wanted to attend mine because of who would be there. "I'm afraid the venue has limited capacity," I said, the words coming out before I had fully considered them. "We've already confirmed all available spots." "But surely you can make an exception for family," my mother pressed, a note of indignation creeping into her voice. "The same way Amanda made an exception for me?" I asked quietly. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken tensions. "That was different, Chase," she finally said, her voice defensive. "Patrick's family had expectations. And I have boundaries," I replied firmly. "I need to go, Mom. I have a meeting." After hanging up, I leaned against our car, suddenly exhausted. Jenna wrapped her arms around me, offering silent support. "You okay?" she asked after a moment. "I think I just uninvited my parents from our wedding," I said, half disbelieving my own actions. Jenna nodded. "You stood up for yourself. That's allowed, you know." Before we could discuss it further, my phone rang again. This time, it was Amanda. I considered letting it go to voicemail but decided to face whatever was coming. "Hello, Amanda," I answered, keeping my tone neutral. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded without preamble. "Mom just called me in tears because you refused to let them come to your wedding." I pinched the bridge of my nose, fighting for patience. "That's not exactly what happened." "So they can come?" she challenged. "No," I admitted. "But the reason isn't to hurt them. We genuinely have limited space, and all the spots are confirmed. This is about my wedding, isn't it?" Her voice was sharp with accusation. "You're trying to get back at us by creating some spectacle with your fancy new friends." The unfairness of her assessment stung. "Actually, Amanda, not everything is about you. Jenna and I planned our wedding to celebrate our relationship and the community we've built. The fact that you and our parents only became interested when you heard who might be attending says more about you than it does about me. You're deliberately trying to upstage my wedding," she insisted. "Do you know how this makes me look? Patrick's family is already asking questions about why Jordan Wallace attended my brother's wedding but not mine. Maybe you should have thought of that before deciding I wasn't good enough to be seen at your perfect day," I replied, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. A tense silence followed. When Amanda spoke again, her tone had shifted from anger to something closer to pleading. "Chase, be reasonable. You know how important appearances are in our circles." "That's just it, Amanda. They're not important in mine. The people attending our wedding are coming because they value substance over appearance, creativity over credentials. They're coming to celebrate authentic connection, not to network or be seen. So you're not even going to invite your own family?" The disbelief in her voice was genuine. I sighed, suddenly tired of the conflict. "I'll tell you what. If you can look me in the eye and sincerely apologize for excluding me from your wedding, for making me feel like I wasn't good enough to be seen with your fancy friends, then we can discuss finding space for you and our parents." Another silence, this one longer and heavier. "You know I can't admit that to Patrick's family," she finally said, her voice small. "I'm not asking you to tell them anything. I'm asking for a sincere apology between siblings. I need to think about this," she said, and hung up. I stared at my phone, a mix of emotions washing over me. Part of me felt vindicated that the tables had turned so dramatically, but another part ached for the relationship with my sister that seemed increasingly out of reach. Jenna squeezed my hand. "For what it's worth, I think you handled that perfectly." I wasn't so sure. As we drove home, I wondered if I was allowing hurt to guide my actions, or if I was finally establishing the boundaries my family had trampled for years. The line between justice and revenge felt dangerously thin, and I wasn't entirely confident which side I was standing on. That evening, I called Sarah Harper and agreed to include our wedding in her documentary series, with the condition that it focus on the broader themes of recognizing value in unexpected places rather than specific family drama. If our story could help others feel less alone in their experiences of exclusion or misunderstanding, perhaps some meaning could come from the pain. As our wedding day approached, the tension with my family remained unresolved. Amanda never called back with an apology, and my parents shifted between angry messages and attempts at manipulation. Through it all, Jenna remained my steadfast support, reminding me that our celebration was about joy and connection, not old wounds or new scores. What neither of us could have anticipated was just how significant that celebration would become, not just for us but for countless others who would find their own stories reflected in ours. Our wedding day dawned clear and bright, the October sun casting a golden glow over Portland. I woke early, a mix of excitement and lingering anxiety stirring in my chest. Today should have been purely joyful, yet the unresolved situation with my family cast a subtle shadow over the morning. "You doing okay?" Travis asked as he helped me adjust my tie in the getting ready room at our venue. "Yeah," I said, not entirely convincingly. "Just thinking about everything." Travis squeezed my shoulder. "Today isn't about them, man. It's about you and Jenna and the life you've built together. Focus on that." He was right, of course. I took a deep breath and resolved to be present for every moment of this day we had so carefully planned. When I stepped out of the venue to greet early arrivers, I was surprised to see several unmarked black SUVs parked nearby, security personnel standing discreetly at strategic points. Our wedding coordinator approached, slightly flustered. "Just wanted to let you know, security teams for several guests have coordinated a plan," she explained quietly. "Everything's under control, but there may be some media presence outside. We've established a perimeter." The surreal nature of the situation hit me anew. What had started as a personal celebration had somehow transformed into an event requiring security protocols and media management. By the time the ceremony was set to begin, our industrial chic venue had filled with an extraordinary gathering. Jordan Wallace chatted amiably with my college roommate, Dr. Lisa Chen, whose climate research had changed global policy discussions, compared notes with Jenna's aunt. 3 different tech innovators whose products I had used for years were engaged in animated conversation with my employees. Most surprisingly, Sarah Harper's documentary team moved through the space with remarkable discretion, capturing moments without disrupting them. When Eliza James slipped in through a side entrance, accompanied by a single assistant rather than an entourage, I felt a surge of gratitude for how these accomplished people were treating our day with genuine respect rather than celebrity privilege. As I took my place at the altar, I scanned the gathered crowd. The absence of my parents and sister was noticeable to me, a small, hollow space in an otherwise perfect day. I had left 3 seats empty, just in case. But as the music began and the final guests were seated, those chairs remained unoccupied. Then Jenna appeared at the entrance, and everything else faded away. She was breathtaking in her simple, elegant gown, her eyes finding mine immediately. As she walked toward me, I was overwhelmed by a sense of rightness, of belonging exactly where I was, with exactly who I was meant to be with. The ceremony itself was brief, but deeply meaningful. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves, promises that acknowledged both our strengths and vulnerabilities. When the officiant pronounced us married and we shared our first kiss as a married couple, the applause that erupted seemed to contain all the joy and affirmation I had sought for so long. During the reception, something unexpected began to unfold. What had been planned as standard wedding toasts transformed into something more powerful. Jordan Wallace took the microphone first, his presence commanding immediate attention. "I don't normally speak at private events," he began, "but Chase and Jenna's story resonates with me deeply. In a world that often values credentials over capability, pedigree over passion, they have built something authentic and meaningful by recognizing the true worth of people and ideas." He raised his glass. "To recognizing genuine talent over superficial markers of success. May we all have the wisdom to value what truly matters." His toast set the tone for what followed. One by one, various guests offered reflections that transcended typical wedding sentiments, speaking to themes of authentic recognition, finding belonging beyond traditional paths, and creating community based on shared values, rather than social expectations. Dr. Chen spoke eloquently about the courage to define success on your own terms. A renowned professor who had become a mentor to Jenna shared thoughts on the family we choose versus the family we're born into. Each speech seemed to build upon the last, creating a narrative that felt both deeply personal and universally significant. When Eliza James took the small stage we had set up for the band, a hush fell over the room. "Chase and Jenna, I don't know you well," she said with genuine warmth, But your story found its way to me, and it resonated. This song is about finding your people, the ones who see you clearly and love you completely. Congratulations on finding each other and building this beautiful community around you." As she began to sing, I noticed Sarah's camera crew positioning themselves to capture both the performance and the reactions throughout the room. I was suddenly aware that this moment, and all the ones that had preceded it, were being preserved not just for our private memories, but potentially for a much wider audience. During a quiet moment between dinner and dancing, I checked my phone and saw multiple missed calls from my parents and Amanda. There were also several messages from extended family members who had seen social media posts about our wedding and were confused about why they hadn't been invited when all these famous people were there. More surprisingly, I noticed Instagram and Twitter were buzzing with hashtags related to our wedding. Someone had posted a photo of Jordan Wallace arriving, another of Eliza James performing. Our private celebration had somehow become a public conversation about belonging, recognition, and redefining success. Chase. Jenna appeared at my side, her eyes concerned. "Are you seeing all this?" I nodded, showing her my phone. "It's getting a lot of attention." She bit her lip. "I just saw something else. Your sister is watching the live stream." "What live stream?" I asked, confused. "Apparently someone is streaming parts of the reception on Instagram Live. I'm not sure who, but I just got a notification that Amanda is among the viewers." I felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of me was uncomfortable with the public nature this private event had taken on. Yet another part felt a quiet vindication that my family was witnessing this gathering of people who valued me exactly as I was. As we moved to cut the cake, I noticed Sarah Harper approaching with her assistant. "This is becoming quite significant," she said quietly. "The online response is extraordinary. People are connecting deeply with the symbolism of this gathering, especially in contrast to your exclusion from your sister's wedding. Would you be open to sharing a few thoughts on camera later?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Mom is literally in tears watching this. What have you done?" Another message followed quickly. "Dad says, that's Senator Harris at your reception. Is that true? How do you even know these people?" Then a third. "Call me immediately. This is getting out of control." I showed the messages to Jenna, who squeezed my hand supportively. "What do you want to do?" she asked. I considered the question carefully. This day was about celebration, not confrontation. About joy, not vindication. About looking forward, not backward. "Nothing," I said finally. "Today isn't about them. Tomorrow we can deal with family drama if we need to. Tonight is ours." Jenna smiled, her eyes shining with pride and love. "That's why I married you." As we rejoined our guests for the first dance, I caught sight of Sarah's camera discreetly capturing the moment. Whatever narrative emerged from this day, I hoped it would reflect the truth, that success isn't measured by names on a guest list or social media attention, but by creating spaces where people feel genuinely seen and valued for who they truly are. The rest of the evening unfolded in a blur of dancing, laughter, and heartfelt conversations. Throughout it all, I remained acutely aware of the empty chairs I had reserved for my family, a small reminder of what was missing amidst all the abundance. But rather than allowing that absence to define the day, I chose to focus on the extraordinary community that had gathered to celebrate with us, a testament to the life and values Jenna and I had built together. As the night drew to a close, Travis pulled me aside for a moment of quiet conversation. "I need to confess something," he said, looking slightly sheepish. "The whole viral aspect of this wedding, the high-profile guests, the social media attention, I might have had more to do with that than I initially let on." I raised an eyebrow, waiting for him to continue. "After you told me about being excluded from Amanda's wedding, I was furious on your behalf. So I reached out to some contacts, shared your story, suggested that attending your wedding would make a meaningful statement. I never expected it to snowball like this, though. Rather than feeling manipulated, I felt a surge of gratitude for this friend who had championed me when my own family wouldn't. "Thank you," I said simply, embracing him. Not for the attention or the guest list, but for believing I deserved better than what my family offered. As Jenna and I departed amid a shower of eco-friendly confetti, I caught sight of Sarah Harper's thoughtful expression as she directed her team to capture these final moments. Whatever story emerged from her documentary, I realized it had already served a purpose for me personally. It had transformed a painful exclusion into an opportunity to examine what truly constitutes family, belonging, and recognition. What I didn't yet know was how powerfully that story would resonate beyond our personal circle, or how dramatically it would force a reckoning within my own family. 3 weeks after our wedding, Jenna and I were settling into married life when my phone exploded with notifications. Sarah Harper's documentary series, titled Recognition: Redefining Success and Belonging, had just released its first episode featuring our wedding. Within hours, it was trending on multiple platforms. "Chase, you need to see this," Jenna called from the living room, her laptop open to Twitter. The hashtag #WeddingRevenge was trending at #1, with #Recognition Wedding close behind. I sat beside her, scrolling through the thousands of comments. People were sharing deeply personal stories of family exclusion, of being the black sheep, of finding validation outside traditional family structures. Our wedding had somehow become a symbol for a broader cultural conversation about belonging and authenticity. Clips from the documentary were being shared everywhere. Jordan Wallace's toast about valuing talent over credentials, Eliza James's performance and heartfelt introduction, and most powerfully, a moment I hadn't even been aware was captured on film. During a quiet moment at the reception, I had shared with Sarah a brief reflection on what the day meant to me. "This isn't about revenge," I had said. "It's about recognition. All my life, I've been told that my path wasn't valid because it didn't follow traditional expectations. Today, I'm surrounded by people who value innovation, authenticity, and meaningful connection over social conformity. That's what this celebration represents." That 30-second clip had gone viral, resonating with millions of viewers who felt similarly misunderstood or undervalued in their own lives. The series didn't explicitly detail my exclusion from Amanda's wedding, maintaining the discretion we had requested, but the contrast was implied through careful editing and contextual framing. Viewers were connecting the dots themselves, creating a narrative that, while not entirely accurate in its specifics, captured the emotional truth of what had happened. "This is surreal," I murmured, overwhelmed by the public response. Jenna nodded, equally stunned. "I think you've accidentally become the face of a movement about family dynamics and validation." Before we could process further, my phone rang. It was Travis. "Have you seen it?" he asked without preamble. "Yeah, it's everywhere," I confirmed. "Not just the documentary," Travis clarified. "Your mother. It's all over local social media that Margaret Spencer literally fainted when she saw the full guest list in the documentary credits. Apparently, she had no idea Senator Harris and the governor were there, not to mention the tech and entertainment figures." I felt a surge of concern despite everything. "Is she okay?" "Fine. Just a dramatic episode at her book club when someone showed her the video on their phone." "But Chase, your family is in full crisis mode. Amanda's in-laws are asking questions. Social connections are wondering why they weren't at this apparently significant social event, and the narrative forming online isn't flattering to them." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. "We need to talk. Family meeting. Our house. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. I showed Jenna the message. "What do you think?" She considered it thoughtfully. "I think it's time for an honest conversation, but on your terms, not theirs. Suggest your house instead. This needs to be a dialogue, not another opportunity for them to lecture you." I texted back. "Let's meet at my place instead. 7 p.m. works better." His response came quickly. "Fine, we'll be there." The next 24 hours were a whirlwind. Messages poured in from all directions. Distant relatives questioning why they weren't invited. Childhood friends sharing supportive memories. Business contacts impressed by the connections revealed in the documentary. And most surprisingly, dozens of messages from strangers sharing how our story had touched them, how it had given them courage to set boundaries in their own family relationships. Sarah Harper called to check in, concerned about the unexpected virality of the episode. "This has resonated far beyond what we anticipated," she explained. "We're fielding interview requests from major networks. They want to talk to you and your family, explore the reconciliation angle." "There is no reconciliation yet," I pointed out, "and I'm not interested in turning this into more public spectacle." Sarah Harper called to check in, concerned about the unexpected virality of the episode. "This has resonated far beyond what we anticipated," she explained. We're fielding interview requests from major networks. They want to talk to you and your family, explore the reconciliation angle. As 7 p.m. approached the following evening, Jenna and I prepared our home for the confrontation ahead. We arranged the living room to feel neutral and welcoming, despite the tension we anticipated. At exactly 7, the doorbell rang. My parents stood on the threshold, looking simultaneously angry and uncomfortable. Amanda and Patrick waited behind them, her expression unreadable, his clearly displeased. "Come in," I said simply, stepping aside. They entered silently, taking in our home with evaluative glances. I realized with a start that none of them had ever visited before, despite Jenna and I living here for over 2 years. "Can I offer anyone a drink?" Jenna asked, her tone professionally cordial. My mother declined stiffly. My father requested water. Amanda and Patrick remained silent, exchanging glances. Once everyone was seated, an uncomfortable silence descended. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Chase, this situation has gotten out of hand," he began, his tone measured but stern. "This documentary has created serious social complications for our family." I waited, saying nothing, refusing to be defensive. "People are asking questions," my mother continued when I didn't respond. "The Andersons were at book club when I saw that video. Do you have any idea how humiliating it was to learn about your guest list that way? To have Patricia Anderson realize that you hosted her daughter's favorite singer at your wedding? And Patrick's father sits on committees with Senator Harris," Amanda added, her voice tight. "He asked Patrick why we weren't at the event, assuming we would have been invited to our own brother's wedding. What were we supposed to say? Perhaps the truth?" I suggested quietly. "That you decided I wasn't good enough to attend your wedding, so I respected your wishes by not extending an invitation to mine." Patrick shifted uncomfortably. "That's not exactly what happened," he muttered. "Isn't it?" I challenged, maintaining my composure. "Mom literally said, 'I would ruin the atmosphere.' Those were her exact words." "You're taking that out of context," my mother protested. "Then please, provide the context that makes excluding your son from his sister's wedding acceptable," Jenna interjected, her voice calm but firm. My mother turned to her, seemingly surprised by her intervention. "This is a family matter. Jenna is family," I stated firmly. "More family than some people in this room have been to me." Another uncomfortable silence fell. My father, always the practical one, tried a different approach. "Look, clearly mistakes were made on all sides. But this public spectacle isn't helping anyone. We need to present a united front and move past this." "A united front," I repeated slowly. "That's interesting coming from people who have consistently made me feel like I don't belong in this family. Tell me, Dad, when exactly have you ever stood by me, or my choices?" He looked genuinely taken aback. "That's not fair, Chase. We've always supported you." "Have you? When I started my business instead of going to college, you told everyone it was just a phase. When I made my first 6 figures, you called it lucky timing. Every success I've had has been minimized or dismissed because it didn't fit your narrow definition of achievement." "We were concerned," my mother insisted. "Entrepreneurship is risky. We wanted security for you." "No," I countered, feeling years of hurt crystallizing into clarity. "You wanted me to validate your values and social standing. It was never about my happiness or success. It was about how my choices reflected on you." Amanda had been unusually quiet. Now she spoke, her voice less confrontational than before. "I didn't know you felt that way all these years." "How could you not know?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I've been the family disappointment my entire life." "That's not true," she protested, but weakly. "Isn't it? When was the last time anyone in this family asked about my business with genuine interest? When was the last time you celebrated one of my achievements the way we've all celebrated yours? When was the last time I was treated as an equal member of this family rather than the odd one out who needed to be fixed or hidden away?" The questions hung in the air, unanswered. For perhaps the first time, I saw something shift in my family's expressions. A glimmer of recognition that there might be truth in my words. "The wedding," my mother began hesitantly. "Amanda's wedding. Perhaps we handled that poorly." "Perhaps?" Jenna echoed, disbelief evident in her tone. My mother shot her an irritated glance before continuing. We were trying to accommodate Patrick's family's expectations. They're very traditional, and your lifestyle is so different. My lifestyle, I repeated. You mean my career? My relationship? What exactly about my life is so offensive that it warranted excluding me from my sister's wedding? No one answered immediately. Then Patrick, surprisingly, spoke up. It wasn't about you specifically, Chase. My parents have certain social expectations. They wouldn't understand someone who hadn't followed a traditional education and career path. I looked at him directly. And now? After seeing the documentary, after learning about the people who value me enough to attend my wedding, have their perceptions changed? Patrick had the grace to look embarrassed. They've asked to meet you, actually. A bitter laugh escaped me. Of course they have. Now that I have social currency they recognize, now that I've proven my worth according to metrics they value, suddenly, I'm worthy of inclusion. That's unfair, Amanda protested. Is it? Would they have wanted to meet me if my wedding hadn't included people they consider important? Would you have apologized for excluding me if this hadn't become public? The silence that followed was answer enough. Here's what I need from all of you, I said finally. I need acknowledgement of the hurt you've caused, not just with the wedding but with years of making me feel less than. I need genuine interest in my life and work, not just when it garners social attention, and I need you to see me for who I actually am, not who you wish I would be. My father shifted uncomfortably. And if we can do that, what then? Then we can start building a real relationship, I said simply. But it has to be authentic. No more pretending, no more conditions on belonging. My mother's eyes filled with tears, whether from genuine remorse or social embarrassment, I couldn't tell. I never meant to make you feel that way, Chase. You're my son. I love you. Love should come with acceptance, I said gently. Not just when it's convenient or socially advantageous. As the conversation continued into the night, something unexpected began to unfold. Beneath the anger and defensiveness, layers of misunderstanding and unexamined assumptions started to surface. My parents spoke of their own parents' expectations, of fears about economic security that had shaped their values. Amanda admitted to feelings of competition and resentment that had colored her perception of my choices. None of it excused the exclusion or years of dismissal, but it offered context that helped me see my family with more compassion than I had felt in years. By the time they left, nothing was fully resolved, but something had shifted. We had agreed to meet with a family therapist, a neutral third party, who could help us navigate the complex dynamics at play. It wasn't forgiveness or reconciliation yet, but it was a beginning. After closing the door behind them, Jenna wrapped her arms around me. "Proud of you," she whispered. "For what?" I asked, emotionally drained. "For standing your ground while still leaving room for healing." That's a difficult balance. As we prepared for bed that night, I checked my phone one last time and found a text from Amanda. "I'm sorry for not standing up for you. For what it's worth, I've always admired your courage to forge your own path. I just never knew how to say it. It wasn't everything, but it was something. A small crack in the wall that had separated us for so long. Whether that crack would widen into an opening remained to be seen, but for the first time in years I felt hopeful about the possibility. 1 year later, Jenna and I sat in our expanded office space, reviewing plans for our company's new branch. The documentary had brought unexpected opportunities, connecting us with clients and partners who resonated with our approach to business and life. What had begun as a personal wedding had evolved into a catalyst for professional growth neither of us could have anticipated. "The Seattle location looks promising," Jenna noted, scrolling through property options. "And with the baby coming in 4 months, the timing actually works well for expansion." I smiled, placing a hand on her growing belly. The news of our pregnancy had brought joy not just to us but, surprisingly, to my entire family. My mother had immediately begun collecting baby items, my father had started a college fund, and Amanda had offered to help design the nursery. Her legal precision, finding a creative outlet in color schemes and furniture arrangements. The family therapy sessions we had begun after the confrontation had evolved from tense, careful conversations to genuine dialogue. Progress wasn't linear, with setbacks and difficult moments interspersed with breakthroughs. But the overall trajectory was positive. Slowly, we were learning to see and accept each other as we actually were, not as we wished each other to be. Sarah Harper's documentary had expanded beyond our wedding, following the family reconciliation process with our permission. The follow-up episode, released 6 months after the first, had resonated even more powerfully than the original, offering hope to viewers that healing was possible even after profound hurts. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Amanda stood on our threshold, a thick binder tucked under her arm. "Am I interrupting?" she asked, a tentative smile on her face. The formality that had once characterized our interactions had gradually softened into something more genuine. "Not at all," Jenna assured her, clearing space at the table. "What's in the binder?" Amanda placed it down carefully. "Nursery plans. I know you said you wanted something gender-neutral with elements of nature, so I've put together some options." The care she had taken, researching eco-friendly materials and sustainable brands that aligned with our values, touched me deeply. This wasn't my sister trying to impose her preferences. This was her genuinely engaging with who we were. "This is incredible, Amanda," I said, flipping through the meticulously organized sections. "Thank you." She ducked her head slightly, still unused to direct appreciation between us. "Well, I figure my niece or nephew deserves the best start. Also, I have some news of my own." Jenna and I looked at her expectantly. "I've decided to shift my legal focus," Amanda explained, a new energy in her voice. "I'm joining a firm that specializes in supporting entrepreneurs and startups. After everything that happened, after seeing your world up close, I realized there's value in building bridges between traditional legal structures and innovative business approaches." The significance of this shift wasn't lost on me. Amanda had built her identity around corporate law and traditional success metrics. This new direction represented not just a career change, but an evolution in her understanding of value and contribution. "That's fantastic," I said genuinely. "You'll be amazing at it." Actually, she hesitated. "I was hoping to get your perspective on their client approach. Your experience could help me understand what entrepreneurs really need from their legal team." The request for my input, my expertise in an area she had previously dismissed, felt like the completion of a circle that had begun with exclusion and was ending with inclusion. Our conversation about her new venture was interrupted by the arrival of our parents, who had started coming over for dinner every other week. These gatherings had been awkward at first, everyone carefully navigating new boundaries and old hurts, but gradually they had evolved into genuine family time. My father entered carrying dessert from the bakery Jenna loved, a small but significant gesture that acknowledged her preferences rather than defaulting to what he would have chosen. We passed Patrick on our way in, my mother mentioned as she helped set the table. "He said to tell you he's bringing the contracts by tomorrow morning." This casual reference to Patrick, who had become a surprising ally in the reconciliation process, reflected how much had changed. After the initial confrontation, he had reached out privately to apologize for his role in the wedding exclusion, admitting that he had prioritized his parents' comfort over what was right. His legal expertise had subsequently proven valuable as our business expanded, creating a professional connection that helped rebuild personal bridges. During dinner, my father asked detailed questions about our Seattle expansion plans, showing genuine interest in the business strategy. My mother shared stories from her book club, which had shifted from being a source of social status to a genuine intellectual engagement after the documentary had forced her to reconsider her priorities. As we cleared the dishes, my mother paused beside me at the sink. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said in that therapy session last month, about how children need to be seen for who they are, not who parents want them to be." I nodded, remembering the emotional conversation about how we hoped to parent our own child differently. "I want you to know," she continued, her voice soft but determined, "that I see you now, Chase, not perfectly, and I'm still learning, but I see how extraordinary you are on your own terms. I'm sorry it took me so long." The simple acknowledgement, delivered without dramatic fanfare but with genuine sincerity, meant more than any grand gesture could have. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, Jenna and I sat on our back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Did you ever imagine we'd be here?" she asked, her head resting on my shoulder. "With a baby on the way, a growing business, and my family actually functioning like a family?" "Not in my wildest dreams," I admitted. "The wedding going viral was the strangest blessing," she mused. "Not because of the connections or opportunities, but because it forced conversations that might never have happened otherwise." She was right. The public attention had made private denial impossible, creating an opening for truth that might otherwise have remained buried under layers of politeness and avoidance. "What do you think the most important lesson has been in all of this?" Jenna asked, her hand finding mine. I considered the question carefully. That recognition has to begin with self. For years I sought validation from my family, measuring my worth by their approval. The real shift came when I fully recognized my own value and built connections with people who saw it too. And for your family? That love without acceptance isn't really love at all. It's just expectation wearing a mask. The following week, Sarah's team conducted the final interviews for the documentary's conclusion. The filmmaker sat with my family in our living room, capturing the transformed dynamics with her characteristic sensitivity. "If you could share one insight from this journey with viewers, what would it be?" she asked my mother. Margaret Spencer, once so concerned with appearances and social standing, considered the question thoughtfully. "That true success isn't measured by degrees or job titles or social connections," she said finally. "It's measured by the authenticity of your relationships and the courage to live according to your own values, even when that's difficult." My father nodded in agreement, adding, "And that sometimes the people we think we're guiding actually have the most to teach us, if we're willing to listen." Amanda, sitting beside Patrick, offered her own reflection. "I've learned that there are many valid paths to a meaningful life, and that our differences can strengthen rather than threaten us if we approach them with curiosity instead of judgment." When it was my turn to speak, I found myself focusing not on the hurt of exclusion, but on the journey toward healing. "This story began with rejection," I acknowledged. "But it isn't ultimately about that. It's about the possibility of growth and reconnection, even after profound hurts. It's about recognizing that families, like individuals, can evolve and heal if they're willing to face difficult truths with courage and compassion." The documentary aired 2 months later, coinciding with the news that Jenna and I were expecting a son. The public response was overwhelming, with thousands sharing stories of family reconciliation and healing inspired by our journey. On the day we brought our son home from the hospital, my family gathered at our house, not because social convention dictated it or because they sought validation from our now public story, but because they genuinely wanted to welcome the newest member of our family. As I watched my mother gently cradling my son, my father taking photos with pride, and Amanda organizing the many gifts with her characteristic efficiency but a new warmth, I reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought us here. From exclusion to inclusion, from rejection to acceptance, from painful separation to imperfect but genuine connection. "What are you thinking?" Jenna asked, coming to stand beside me. "That sometimes the most painful rejections can lead to the most meaningful recognitions," I replied, watching my family with our son. "And that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the hurt, but choosing to build something new in its place." She squeezed my hand, understanding as she always did. "And that authentic success isn't about who attends your wedding, but about creating a life that reflects your deepest values." "Exactly," I agreed, kissing her forehead gently. "The guest list matters far less than the love that brings people together in the first place." As my family gathered around our dining table that evening, sharing a meal and making plans for the future, I realized that the true measure of our journey wasn't the viral wedding or successful business or even the public affirmation, but this: the genuine connection that had replaced superficial expectation, the authentic relationships that had grown from painful honesty. In the end, we had all received the recognition we most deeply needed, the recognition of being seen, accepted, and valued for who we truly were, not who others wished us to be. And in that recognition lay the foundation for healing, growth, and love that could withstand the inevitable challenges ahead. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Has your family ever misunderstood or undervalued your choices? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more authentic life journeys, and share with someone who might need to hear that reconciliation is possible even after deep hurt. Wishing you strength and authenticity in all your relationships,